All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special council meeting for March 2nd, 2026. The time is 6:24, and it's my pleasure to call the meeting to order. We do like to acknowledge that we gather on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people. Specifically, we recognize the Lekwungen people, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and their historic connections to these lands and adjoining waters continue to this day. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. My mayor's remarks will be brief. Certainly, in evenings like this, where there's so much chaos in the world, I always appreciate where we live, both the community and the country. So it's good to be here doing some work. For those wondering why there's a special meeting tonight, we thought we would tag on to the public hearing, and as you probably know, we have a lot of land use going on in Oak Bay at the moment, and so they're just taking advantage to try to get caught up and make sure that council's timelines are not a barrier to getting through some of the applications. So that's why we're here tonight. I just want to point out for the public's interest, our budget meetings start this Thursday at 6 p.m. You can either be here in person to watch, participate, or be online. And I also wanted to point out that the next Heritage Talk, which is put on by the Heritage Foundation, is happening on March the 11th. So if you're interested in a good talk, that'll probably be a great one to go to. Those are all my remarks for this evening, though. I just want to get right to the business at hand. Our first section is special meeting matters. These are not subject to public input, although there is one that has a variance portion, which does allow for some public input at the end of the section. So 4.1, Upland Siting and Design, ADP 00200 at 3110 Norfolk Road. I'm going to hand this over to staff to do a brief introduction.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. The district has received an Uplands siting and design application for the property located at 3110 Norfolk Road. The purpose of the application is to allow exterior changes to the existing single-family dwelling, comprising changes to the roof material and cladding materials. This application was presented to the advisory design panel on February the 10th of this year, and the panel recommended that the application be approved as presented. Staff are also recommending that the application be approved. The applicant, Lewis Horvat, should be attending via Zoom from Zebra Design and is happy to answer any questions that council may have on the application.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Green. This is actually a very straightforward application, I believe. So I'm going to go to members of the public or members of council to see if there are any questions. Not seeing any questions, perhaps I can get a motion.
I'll move that the Upland Siting and Design application ADP 00200 for the property located at 3110 Norfolk Road be approved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? Just to express our appreciation to the applicant for the work being undertaken. It looks totally like it fits with what's with the building history. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. We now move to item 4.2, Upland Siting and Design, ADP 00199 for 2975 Beach Drive. Back to staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district has received an Upland Site and Design application for the property located at 2975 Beach Drive. The purpose of the application is to allow exterior changes to the existing single-family dwelling, including changes to the colour of the single-family dwelling and the addition of a new sliding glass door, as well as a new covered patio. This application was presented to the advisory design panel on February the 10th of this year, and the panel recommended that the application be approved as presented. Staff are also recommending that the application be approved. The applicant, Greg Demant from Cascade Architects, is here to answer any questions that council may have on the application.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn to council and see if there are any questions related to this application. Seeing none, can I have someone make the recommendation? Moved. We don't have to read it in. It's fine. Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, same comment as before. Good luck with the project. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. They're not all going to be quite this straightforward, but it's certainly nice to get a couple of them under our belts to start. Moving now to 4.3, the development permit for DP 000066 at 295 King George Terrace. Back to you, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district has received a development permit with variance for the property located at 295 King George Terrace. The purpose of the application is to allow the development of an accessory dwelling unit on the property. that is partially located within the Shorelines development permit area, and to seek approval of variance to reduce the building structure separation from the required 3.0 metres. This application was reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission on January 21st of this year, and the Commission recommended approval with considerations to the biodiversity and natural ecology of the shoreline and natural coastline. Staff are recommending that the application, the development permit application, be approved. The applicant is also here to answer any questions that Council may have on the application.
Thank you very much. The applicant may wish to come forward. I think there probably are a couple of questions related to this, so I'll turn over to staff or to council. Process here will be we'll have opportunity for questions of the applicant or staff. Following that, we'll get some direction from council. Are there questions for the applicant or for staff? Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks so much, Mayor. And through you, I'm wondering, I tried to figure it out from the plans that we have in front of us, but can someone tell me what is the distance between the pylons and the bottom of the building? Because I believe it's cantilevered over the rock, and so I'm just wondering what size or what is the difference between the bottom of the building and the actual rock that it's cantilevered over. Thank you.
Mr. Robbins, why don't you have a seat? We have to have you speak into the microphone or else people at home can't hear you. Can I just get you to push the button and then just state your name and municipality of residence for the record?
Daniel Robbins, Obey.
Great, thank you. You've heard the question. Are you able to answer that question? If not, I can ask staff to look at the plans.
You're referring to the height of the column, I think. Is that right?
May I?
Please go ahead.
So the difference between where the rock will be as to where to the bottom of the building will be, because I think the column will be, it might be the same distance, but it might be a little bit different.
I'm guessing around 10 feet, maybe not quite 8 feet. It's significant. It's quite a steep slope.
Thank you.
And so if I may, will there be any fencing that will be going around the bottom of that, or will it be all open?
Mr. Robbins?
It's meant to be open.
I think you just turned off your microphone. There we go. Oh. There, perfect.
It's meant to be open.
Thanks.
Thank you. And just my last question, Mayor. I'm wondering if you've spoken to any of your neighbors yet about your plans for this piece of your property.
Mr. Robbins?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It should sort of qualify. I don't really have a neighbor on one side, and the neighbor on the other side is, you can't see the structure from my home, so you wouldn't be able to see it from their home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Oh, thank you. I have a question that may be both for staff and the applicant, but it's with regards to when I look at the section drawings and I see the line of approximate existing grade, and then I see what looks like potentially a lot of fill and not a preservation of the natural coastline under the building. But I just wonder if is that could it be elaborated, I guess, on whether the building itself is actually really doing a light touch on the ground with these columns, or is there an amount of fill that's happening under the building to support it as well? Thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
There's no fill, and so that might be a little, so there's half the building sits on level ground before it dives off. So I think what you're looking at is just the natural ground. At the back, the sort of the front half, like, of the building, is that? There's no columns at let's call it the front end of the building. There's only 2 columns at the back of the building. The first half of the building sits on level ground.
Yeah, go ahead. Maybe we refer to this as sort of the landward side and the seaward
Sure.
side, so that we're all a little clearer, or the downslope side, so we know what we're talking about. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Then just to clarify, can I confirm then that the way the building touches the ground is entirely with the columns or existing grade, and that otherwise the natural grade under the building is not being disturbed or filled otherwise, if, as the drawings may allude to it appearing like that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr.
Correct, there's no fill coming in.
Thank you. I have Councillor Watson and then Green with questions.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is actually for staff. I just wanted to go back to the advisory body minute from the Advisory Planning Commission. We just have the minute here, and some of you would probably have attended that meeting where there would have been a discussion that led to the considerations considerations to the biodiversity and natural ecology of the shoreline and natural coastline. What kind of considerations, what was the extent of the discussion there, and was there a suggestion that may not have been minuted about what that actually intended in terms of planting or not planting or changes or no changes? That'd be helpful, thank you.
Sure. I'll go to Mr. Green and then I'll happily go to the liaison to Councillor Patterson as well. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Through your worship to Councillor Watson. I guess there was two discussions taking place. One is about the impact of the building encroaching into that DPA from an environmental or ecological perspective, and then a second issue in relation to essentially viewpoints or landscape visual intrusion in relation to looking at the site from if someone was on a boat in the ocean. Was the two main issues.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will just advise council that it was, the vote was 4-3 with this recommendation, and that's why the recommendation came forward with considerations for biodiversity and natural ecology in the shoreline and the natural coastline. Certainly, the committee does take into consideration not just the view from streetscapes, but from waterscapes if it is a shoreline. And there was concern that the application as presented did not speak clearly enough to protection of the biodiversity. Recognizing that shadowing can adversely affect sensitive intertidal habitats and survival of species and plant growth. So certainly there was concerns about that. Also that the application did not provide sufficient information with respect to the footings, location of the footings, size of the footings, and what would take place, that it was a very preliminary overview of it, and so some members of the committee were not satisfied that it provided them with enough evidence. There was also discussion at the committee that there was potential perhaps to reduce the footprint size of the accessory dwelling unit as provided, as 50% of it was really in the shoreline protection area. So it wasn't minimal, and of course this is an accessory dwelling unit, not a primary dwelling. So that was the committee's rationale.
Councillor Watson, did you have anything else? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Green, then I have Councillor Appleton, and I'll go back to Councillor Patterson if you had anything else.
Thank you. Thank you, and through you to the applicant. Thank you for being here. It does say that there will be no substantial excavation at the site, but there will be no blasting. Is that correct? You don't anticipate blasting?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So maybe I just have a question for the applicant. There's a couple of components of the guidelines for the DPA that are indicated as met, and I guess I would sort of take issue with that and just sort of recognize that there's a bit of confusion around there. Specifically, on the guideline indicating that there's if land exists, land for the use intended exists on the property outside of the DPA, the proposed development should be directed to those areas. So specifically, I'm not asking the question with respect of what the challenges might be. The topography is difficult on the site no matter where you build, and I'm recognizing that the proposed building has a cantilever on it, which is quite an engineering structure in and of itself. So I'm just kind of curious as to why there's such a significant encroachment into the DPA when the guideline specifically directs that development should occur outside of that DPA.
Mr. Robbins?
There really is no other location for an accessory dwelling unit. I'm welcome to meet you on site. I met Brian on site, Mr. Green, who probably can attest to the fact that there really just isn't anywhere else to put it. Does that answer your question?
Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. The site plan would seem to indicate otherwise.
Mr. Robbins, perhaps you could just explain why there isn't another suitable spot on that site from the overview look. It just looks well set back from the house, and so,
So there's the house, and then there's a swimming pool, and then there's a set of stairs that goes down, and there's an accessory building. Like, there just really isn't anywhere else. I'm not sure if the swimming pool is on that site plan. But at the bottom of the stairs there's a flat area which we're utilizing. But if we were just to build on the flat area, the structure would be 500 square feet, which doesn't really seem feasible for a home. So I think at this size, it's around 1,000 square feet. But as I met Mr. Green on site, who maybe can describe the lack of any other area to build an ADU.
Mr. Green, do you have anything else to add? I mean,
Yeah, so I have attended the site, and yeah, I can acknowledge that the remainder of the site is a very steep slope. I guess from staff's perspective, when we receive a development permit application, obviously the starting point for our DPA, it's not a setback for development. It's if you are building in that DPA, then you need to obtain a development permit to do that. In this case, the applicant has obtained a development permit, and when somebody submits a development permit in the Shorelines DPA, we then require them to submit a report from either a qualified environmental professional or a registered professional biologist. And in this case, the applicant has submitted a report from a registered professional biologist that we believe satisfies the guidelines in relation to the report talking about minimal impact on that sensitive ecosystem in relation to very little protected species, mainly covered with invasive species of blackberry. And that's definitely the case when you see the site, that this is the most suitable part of the site given the sloping nature of the site and the fact that there isn't, from the QEP's report or the biologist report, any sensitive ecosystem. And so that's how staff has come to that conclusion of this proposal meeting that guideline. And so that's staff's review of the DPA guidelines that is incorporated into the staff report that's before council this evening.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So maybe just building on that, just with respect to the guidelines. The QEP's report does not specifically respond to the idea of impermeable surfacing within the Shorelines DPA. So what this is speaking to is not, in my interpretation of it, is not just speaking to the, essentially the placement of a hard surface. It implies the placement of a hard surface, a patio, a structure, those types of things. This is a cantilevered structure. The guidelines, basically the guideline checklist that's attached to here indicates that impervious surfacing within the Shorelines DPA should be minimized. I interpret that to mean that it should not have essentially an impervious structure placed over it in a cantilevered fashion, which this is. The hydrology, the QEP's report does not speak to the hydrology, and the hydrology of the foreshore environment, the near marine environment, is based on essentially rainfall, and there are some species at risk and some specific species that use, vernal and temporary wetted areas in the foreshore area as well. So it doesn't specifically respond to that. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, there's no specific language in the QEP's report. So I'm kind of wondering how this was identified as addressed, or are we just talking about something specifically that's directly on the ground?
I'll probably put that question to staff. Those are essentially interpretation pieces, so I'll give it that. But if Mr. Robbins, if you wish to, I'll give it to Mr. Green first. If you wish to add anything, I'll let you do so. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
I guess in relation to the guideline that talks about impermeable surfacing within the Shorelines DPA should be minimised, then in this case the building is cancelled, and therefore the impermeable surfacing isn't either decreasing or increasing as a result of that building in terms of the way we interpret our zoning bylaw in relation to impermeable surfacing.
Okay. Mr. Robbins, you want to add anything?
The biologist and I did discuss sun and rain, and he said because it's high enough, it actually will allow sun and rain to get under the structure.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Appleton? All right, we'll go then to Councillor Patterson. I don't know if you wanted anything else, questions? Okay, and then I have Councillor, oh, did I get to you, Councillor Green? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Braithwaite, then Green, both second time.
Sorry, just on the plans that we have, and through you, Mayor, I'm just going to ask exactly where is the swimming pool located? Because I mean, we can see the existing garden bed, the existing accessory building, the existing wooden stairs, so I'm wondering why the swimming pool doesn't show up on there, because I would have assumed that it should have, because that might make a difference as to why the building is positioned where it is. So I'm just wondering if you can tell me where the swimming pool is actually located. Thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
It's right behind the house.
Is in the ortho photo, it looks like a gray roof building with a patio beside it. Is that the swimming pool, or is that just an accessory building and the pool is newer?
The pool's new. It's
Okay.
been there less than a year, which is probably why it's not showing up anywhere.
Okay.
Through your worship, I think if you look at location on the ortho photo on attachment 2, it's essentially where the 5 is in 295 is where the swimming pool is.
Oh, okay. It's just in the ortho photo that if you look on there, which is page 7 of 41. There's an ortho photo with, and the address is overlaid over top, and you're saying that's where the number 5 is. Okay, that's very helpful, thank you. And then I'm going back to, actually, you found it there, so is that, you're good? Thank you, Councillor Green, for second time.
Just one last question, through you to staff. Was there any contemplation or consideration of a geotechnical analysis of that particular slope? Thank you.
Mr. Green?
And so, well, with an invite through your worship to Councillor Green, this is an environmental development permit. It's not located within a hazard lands DPA where we would require a geotechnical report to be submitted as part of the application. Obviously, if this application is approved, they will need to proceed to a building permit application, and through that building permit, the building inspector may require a geotechnical study or a structural sign-off of the building to comply with BC Building Code.
Thank you very much. I just have a question on, there's a new development going in adjacent to here, where there's 3 buildings going in, and in that scenario, there was a special dispensation given for managing rainfall on the site. I'm just curious if that's a similar situation here with the building down low and so forth. Is a similar intent likely to happen here?
I'm not exactly sure what they've done next door.
Okay. Basically, we won't get into it here then, that's fine. You were going to say something, Mr. Green, but we probably don't have to cover off what the adjoining place was if it wasn't part of this application. Okay, and go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to the applicant, I was just wondering if it was considered in the process of looking at a building siting for the ADU to take out the existing accessory building and to put an ADU within and outside of the protected area. Thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
That structure is about 200 square feet, and it's an even more difficult. Like, if you came to the site, it would be quite odd. But not only is there a cliff behind it, there's a cliff in front of it. That's why that building is so skinny. It just sits on a little ledge there, and it's really 200 square feet, which, it seems anything less than 1,000 square feet is pretty small for a home.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you. Oh, I might just have a question for staff on this one. Generally speaking, we've typically treated the hardscape shorelines and the soft shorelines a little bit differently, in that the soft shorelines have a green, what's it called, green shores standard of softening the shoreline using the gravel and logs and things like that to break up wave action and to prevent erosion. This site, as I read it, as I know it, is very solid rock, correct? There is no sort of green shores mitigation here. It is just bedrock, essentially, is what we're talking about. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
That is correct, Your Worship. It's essentially, when you walk to the edge of that property, it's a cliff down to the ocean of about, 20, 25 feet drop down to the ocean.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, back to this table then. We have a recommendation here for approval of the development permit within this area. But perhaps I'll take a motion from council to get us going on debate.
I'll make the motion for the process of debate.
So move approval. Is there a seconder? Sorry, is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded. That was a soft endorsement. So would the mover or the seconder like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you. I am struggling a little bit with this one, I have to be honest, just because I think the building itself looks beautiful. I think that it's a lovely size. I think that you haven't gone overboard on the size. I do struggle a little bit with the shoreline development permit area here. So I'm going to be very interested to hear what everybody else says around the table. I'm leaning towards approving it, but I would like to hear what everybody else has to say as well. But I do appreciate the size of the building, because I know you could have come forward with something a lot bigger. So I do appreciate the sizing of the building that you've come forward with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will not support the recommendation put forward. The plan that I have in front of me, it's page 19 of the package here, shows the new ADU being 1,500 square feet, not 1,000 square feet. And so I think there is potential to reduce the size of that. And with 50% of it being in the shoreline development permit area, I think that this is a case of just trying to make an unusual lot fit every intent, to have a primary dwelling, a swimming pool, the cabana, and everything else. And it is a sloping lot, so I don't see it as really providing the accessibility I would look for in an accessory dwelling unit. It's a challenging location in that area for traffic and for transportation issues. So I take it that this would be whoever resides in the building will be walking or cycling or doing that, and it doesn't lend itself well to that. But primarily the cantilevering over such a proportion of the shoreline development permit area, I think, is just not in keeping with what council's previous considerations with shoreline development is, and that is minimal. Certainly if it was a primary residential building, I think I would view this differently, but it is an accessory dwelling unit, and at 1,500 square feet, still a fairly substantial size that could perhaps be reduced to not so much encroach on the shoreline development permit area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I don't like us making decisions on different data. So I do see on the thing there, the site coverage shows us 1,498 square feet. But I don't see an actual notice for the size of the building outside of that. Just having a quick look here. So I'm not sure if Mr. Robbins or staff could perhaps explain the difference between the site coverage versus the square footage that's been discussed. Mr.
Well,
Robbins?
it's a two-bedroom home. It's not a big home at all.
No,
But
no,
the
like,
site
sorry,
coverage, it would be, there's a walkway into it, there's a deck. The 1,000 square feet I referred to would be the finished living space,
Okay.
I think. And I don't have
Staff,
the
maybe
drawings
just
in
have a
front
quick
of
look
me.
at the plans on our behalf and just confirm what is the living space versus the site coverage.
Through your worship, yeah, so the floor areas is saying 1,058 square foot, but then I do notice that there it says new ADU 1,400 I'm testing my eyesight a little bit.
It's
here.
lot coverage that's for 1498.
Oh, that's site coverage, yes. So the floor area is 1,058 square feet of the building.
So I see, it's got a veranda wrapped around two sides,
Yeah.
which is probably the extension piece.
1,058.
Is there anything else that gets captured in the lot coverage on a sloping form like this?
It's probably the deck areas.
Okay.
Yeah, the covered deckings that will cover for the coverage versus the actual floor area, which will be measured to the exterior walls.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Just want to make sure we all have the same information that we're making decisions on. Other discussion? Councillor Watson, and then Smart.
Yes, thank you. I will also not be voting in support of this right now. I think it needs some more work. My major concern is because of the extent that is extending into the DPA, that what actually reads from the water is actually, reads more like a pier than a residence. And the proportionality between the amount of post or that is required in order to hold it up just it makes it stand out, I think, in a not a favorable way along the shoreline. To see housing that addresses the natural slope and preserves that the sense of that topography, what Councillor Green asked about, would there be blasting? I think that's one of the things, I'm not sure we say it anywhere in the guidelines, but to be able to preserve that look and feel of we have this rugged coastline and we're going to nestle up to it as opposed to extend over it, I think is an important value. And I don't see that in this project. If it were smaller, if it were even two-story and pushed back, there might be some more options, but I don't like the use of this area, this protected area, for this particular housing form. So I can't support it at this time.
Councillor Watson, I have Councillor Smart and then Green next, and then Appleton.
Yeah, thank you. I also won't be supporting the motion on the floor. In principle, I just don't agree with building in the shoreline DPA. If it was a very small intrusion, then I think it would be worth a conversation, but this is a significant, I don't see it as a partial encroachment when half of the ADU is within the DPA, and I don't entirely agree with the concept of it being cantilevered. It's on columns. It's going to have disruption on the site. I empathize with the desire to create the housing, and I do think there's many strong elements to the design, but I don't think we would be considering cantilevering into the front yard setback. This is the front yard, in a sense, to the ocean, and I think we need to preserve that area. It's not enough to say that the ground is still exposed. There's going to be a building in this area that we've built these design guidelines around to ensure that it's a natural area.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. I have Councillor Green and then Appleton.
Thank you, Mayor. And I seconded the motion for discussion, and I'm glad I did so. I think we've had some good discussion around the table. I don't have a lot to add. I will not be supporting the motion for all of the reasons that I've heard articulated well so far by my colleagues. I think this is a very sensitive area. It is one of our few natural areas for sure that Oak Bay cherishes and values, and I think once we start encroaching, regardless of how we do that, it sets some very concerning precedents. So I will not support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just speaking against the motion on the floor. It's an intriguing design, and it's an elegant approach, I guess. But fundamentally, I feel like it runs contrary to some of the strategic goals and some of the strategic objectives that Council has established through the Shorelines DPA. And I specifically refer to the language in the DPA that refers to protecting the integrity of the foreshore and natural processes, and managing the foreshore as a public resource. So we talk about ecological values, but we also talk about having the integrity of the foreshore as a continuous and as a not for visual purposes, but the shoreline defines the municipality in a lot of ways. And I fear that this type of development that encroaches so significantly in such a particular way into the shoreline's DPA, even if accounted for by a QEP report, certainly I think even a casual observer would see this as contrary to the strategic goals of the development permit area. I also, in my view, I feel that the directive in the development permit area that specifies that development should occur outside of the DPA where at all possible, even if there is not additional room, and I believe that that additional area may be possible in this, but also there are existing outbuildings and accessory structures here that I believe are also encompassed in the definition of areas that could be redeveloped for the purposes of avoiding the development permit area. So I do not think that those areas, even if covered by existing accessory buildings, those areas should be considered first. And I do note that specifically in the QEP's report, it does say the language that is used is not definitive. The language that says, specifically, it says, so long as light and precipitation can continue to reach the area beneath the ADU, the intrusion will result in minimal alteration of the existing features. So the language used in the QEP report does not say this is what will occur, this is the outcome. It says so long as, provided that. And so there is definitely a large qualifier there. I consider that the encroachment of the building into the development permit area constitutes an imperviousness or an intrusion into the hydrology of the area, which is specifically precluded in the DPA guidelines. So I cannot support this at this time. I think that there are some other options on the site. And I think that approving it in its current form would set a poor precedent as far as our application of the DPA guidelines. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. So just, I appreciate in the line of pros and cons, I think has been a pretty robust list of the things that are areas of concern on the application. I'm going to speak in favor, and there's a few reasons why, and I think it's worth just noting the rationale for seeing this in maybe a bit more positive light. One, I do recognize this is a very difficult site. It's very steep, very rocky. If the owner does wish to have an accessory dwelling unit on the site, it's very difficult to do that in a way that isn't going to encroach on this space. So so that's part of it. I also recognize that the shoreline development permit area, as noted, is not a no-build zone. It's a chance to look at the relative impact versus value of the build for this. So I think that should be the light in which we're assessing this. And to my mind, the addition of an additional dwelling unit on a difficult site is not does offset some of the potential negative impacts. I also recognize in my mind that a very hard rocky landscape is not as environmentally sensitive as softer erosion prone, et cetera, shoreline. It's just a different space, and the 50 meters is a significant increase from what it used to be, and we asked for that so that we could have a bit more control over these applications, but again, not to say no for anything within those applications. And I think if we look at nearby adjacent properties, for anybody who's gone kayaking or in that area, there's a lot of the neighboring properties have concrete right down to the waterfront. They predate the shoreline development permit area, but this is not that. This is not anywhere close to the water line. And in fact, if you angle to the land, the building is actually, just by its nature of being aligned with the property line, but it's really the corner of the building that's going into the development permit area, not a square out. So it is half the building, but it's the corner of the building, not the full front of the building that's protruding outwards. I also put value on the fact that this is a south-facing lot, and so I think the claims made about the amount of light that gets under such a high cantilevered building are valid, that there is an ample opportunity for light to get under there. And I guess so for me, where I see this, I think the balance of the difficulty of the site, the rocky nature of this, the natural value that we're protecting, and the value of the additional dwelling unit on what is a very difficult lot, for me, balances out in a way that I see it as being meeting the merits of that. So I am supportive of that, of the motion that's on the floor. Is there any other discussion before we call the question? Any other questions of staff before I call the question? Seeing none. Okay, I'm going to call the question. So the motion on the floor is for approval, so just so we're all in the same boat. All those in favor? And those opposed? I have Councillor Patterson, Smart, Appleton, Watson, and Green opposed. That does not carry. At this point, staff will work with the applicant to look at potential options for the site, but at this point, the application is declined. Thank you very much, Mr. Robbins. Moving now to 4.4, the zoning bylaw amendment ZON 00064 at 1024 Transit Road. Ms. Cook, are you doing instructions? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. This application is for a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the property at 1024 Transit Road from R5 residential to a site-specific comprehensive development zone. This rezoning is to facilitate the construction of 2 single-family dwellings and a subsequent 2-lot subdivision. The CD zone would allow for reductions in the minimum lot width and lot area requirements and the combined interior side lot line and upper floor setback requirements. It would also allow for the increase in building and roof height, floor area ratio, and lot coverage regulations than what's currently permitted in the R5 zone. The CD zone will allow 2 dwelling units per lot in the form of a single-family dwelling and secondary suite. This application has gone to the Advisory Planning Commission on January 21st, and the APC was supportive of the application as proposed by the applicant and recommended to council that it be approved. Staff find the application to be generally consistent with OCP policies, particularly in relation to the single-family dwelling character and how the proposal fits in with the existing context of the surrounding neighborhood. Staff have recommended that the applicant is required to construct a secondary suite with each single-family dwelling. Staff consider this to be consistent with the general intent of the infill housing program, which provides for additional density on residential lots when additional units are proposed. The applicant, Mr. Jordan Kempo, recently submitted an addendum to their letter of rationale, and that has been included with the report. Mr. Kempo and his designer, Jeff Costin, are here today. I understand the applicant wishes to speak to their application, after which both staff and the applicant are happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Campo, Mr. Costin, are you here in the room? Please come forward. Please, welcome. Can you just state your name for the record?
Jordan Campo.
Go ahead if you wish to.
Okay, I'll be brief with this as council's already received our addendum to the rationale letter. The intent of our project has always been minimal neighborhood impact. The proposal replaces 1 single-family home with 2 well-scaled homes that fit the established character of Transit Road, and that approach was received support from the APC. Requiring secondary suites would materially change that intent. Accommodating mandatory suites would likely require redesign that increases intensity through additional servicing and potential basements, moving the project away from the low-impact form of infill that was originally proposed and reviewed. Even without suites, the application delivers 1 net new home in a way that aligns with the official community plan's direction for gentle, incremental infill. We've also spoken directly with surrounding neighbors, and the feedback has been that the modest scale and low-impact nature of the proposal fits well within the streetscape. And for those reasons, we ask council to consider approving the application as presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have the received addendum, so we'll go first to questions from members of council. Please go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Not so much a question, but I just want to clarify for council that although the Advisory Planning Commission did recommend this application, the application that went before the Advisory Planning Committee was presented without secondary suites. So it was just to the 2 dwelling units and with the smaller lot size, the committee felt that the minimal excavation required to construct these dwelling units and the minimal impact on either parking or vehicle transportation in the areas would be negligible in the community, and that was why the community supported it. So while I don't have further questions, I just wanted to clarify for council that that was what, so it's not quite the same application that went to the committee, but that was their rationale because of the minimal disruption on the property.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Patterson. Questions for the applicant or to staff? Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks. And through you, Mayor, I just want to double check some of the information that I think I gleaned from the application. So the new lots that are being proposed are 36 feet 2 inches wide instead of the 50 feet that are expected for the new zoning. And then each lot, so the lot area for each new lot would be 2/3 of what it should be, or a third smaller. And then if I'm reading it correctly, it looks like the second-story setbacks are a half of what is proposed in the current bylaw, and I just want to double-check that.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, so for the second-story setback is 3 meters, and as proposed, it's at 1.5 on each of the lots. And you are correct in terms of that lot area being about 2/3 of the R5 zone.
Continue.
Thank you, and if I may. So, and then the other thing that I looked at was the building height is 1 meter higher, and the roof height is almost 3 meters higher, and the FAR is instead of being 0.4, it's 0.66, and the lot coverage is, instead of 30%, is 41%. So again, more than 1/3 more than what our bylaws are stating, correct?
For the residential zone. Please go ahead, Ms. Cook.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, that's basically correct. There was something I just wanted to mention. Oh, yeah, just in terms of the building height and roof height. So for the R5 zone, those regulations are determined as a function of the lot breadth. So as these lots are proposed to be narrower, that's kind of pushing down the height regulations that you might see otherwise within the R5 zone.
Thank you, and if I may, Mayor. And then my last question, and I know that they're proposing to have no basements, so no secondary suites, so they're going to be on slab. But I'm assuming that the size of the building on the lot, would it dictate that there would be no capability of having an accessory dwelling unit in the back of the lot, or would there be still enough space to have an accessory dwelling unit in the back of the lot?
Ms. Cook.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So as proposed, the current floor area ratio is at 0.66. And so in the R5 zone, which this would carry through, so for one single-family dwelling plus an accessory dwelling unit, the floor area ratio allowed is 0.6. So there would be no additional floor area providing for an accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Other questions for the applicant? Just one question for the applicant on this. Is the total setback, it looks like the total setback for both buildings on the interior and exterior side lot setbacks is the same, correct? It's 5 feet on both sides for both stories on those. So, and then first to staff, just for my clarification, there needs to be that 5 feet, correct, for from just building code and so forth. Those buildings can't be closer than that together, the total of 10 feet distance apart. I'll go to Mr. Bowl.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know the exact dimensions for this, but yeah, if it gets narrower, then it will affect the facade and the window openings that are possible in that building. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. And I asked the question just because sometimes we try and adjust these in a way if we're subdividing to kind of keep the buildings as close together as possible so the impact on the neighbors is minimized. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to staff. I just had a procedural question. If council did want to entertain moving forward but striking the requirement for secondary suites, could we simply amend option 1, or would it be more in order to move forward option 3? Thank you.
Sure. Procedurally, I'm quite comfortable with option 1, just striking the language of the requiring the construction of a secondary suite. Mr. Bowl, is that satisfactory? Okay.
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Okay, no worries, it's good. Then, okay, back to this table. So procedurally here, if the willingness is to, so we're going to be considering first, second, and third reading. I think what I might suggest is that we take first and second reading, and if it gets on the floor, then we can talk, and we can talk about some of the other options, such as options like whether to require a secondary suite or other factors, and then we can vote on the motion, which won't include that portion, but that will at least guide the direction as we go forward. So I might just seek that someone put the, and I will need that read into the record because it is a bylaw. Go ahead, Councillor Watson, looks like you're going to speak. Nope. Oh, please, questions first. Please go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I just did have one question. I'm just looking at the rendering, which is on, oh my gosh, I only have a PDF, so I'm actually on page 113 of the whole PDF for the meeting, but it shows the streetscape rendering, and I just wanted to confirm that the tree, the mature tree that's sitting between the two proposed homes is actually the existing tree. Am I reading that correctly?
No,
not.
sorry, Mr. Campo, I don't believe there's any mature tree there right now, is there?
Okay.
Yeah, there's no tree there at all.
So that's an aspirational rendering that takes us to about 2085. Okay, great, thank you.
Looking into the
Okay,
future.
fair enough, okay. Okay, thank you.
Well, yes. Don't curse us all to be gone by then, but thank you.
Your Worship, I would move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4951 be read a first and second time.
Seconded. So this is an appropriate place to talk to any aspect of the application that you want, and I think the point raised by Councillor Smart and by the applicant about concerns about requiring a secondary suite, I think it's probably good at this time if we just have a quick conversation about that as well, although not officially part of the bylaw. I think this is the time because some people may feel comfortable advancing it with, and some people only without, and so let's just have a quick conversation. I'll go to you. Let's go around this way. Councillor Green, and then Watson, and then Smart.
Yes, I will support the notion of dropping the requirement for a secondary suite. I think the applicant is very concerned about the impact on neighbors. I appreciate that so much, and streetscape and so on, and I think it would definitely escalate costs to have to do that. And my understanding is that the area is quite rocky. It could involve extensive blasting for each of those sites. So I think that's a good option, and I would support that. Thank you.
Councillor Watson, and then Smart.
Yes, I line up with Councillor Green on this. I would support this application without secondary suites. I think that it actually is a nice kind of modest, small-scale use of that space, which reads well from the street, and that requiring secondary suites is going to change building proportions and clearly cost, which I appreciate staff's desire to bring us an application that does more to meet our housing goals, but I don't really think, I think it's almost counterproductive here. It's a nice example, and maybe the first one we would have if it went forward, of taking a lot and allowing the applicant to do something that really does grace the streets. So those comments around, these ratios, not, for example, height, because they're related to the width of the lot, it's still totally in keeping with what we see along that streetscape, both on that block and to the north and the south of it. So I think it would be a lovely addition to the neighborhood, and to provide fee simple homes. It's definitely also part of what needs to be in our housing strategy. So I support it without the secondary suites.
Councillor Smart, and then Appleton.
Yeah, thank you. I do echo my colleagues' comments. I think this project has great neighborhood fit. It's a nice design, and while I do appreciate staff bringing forward the concept of having secondary suites, I just think it would have to be an entirely different project to accommodate those. And yes, this close to a park, I would have loved to see a duplex with 2 secondary suites, but that's not the project we have before us. And I think this project is a really nice example of something that will be very welcomed in the community, does provide an extra housing unit. I think it would be a very favorable addition. So I don't support the requirement for secondary suites.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very much the same tone here. Certainly in favor of the development and and proceeding without the requirement for secondary suites. I too am definitely in favor of evaluating the opportunity for a secondary suite in any potential development. So I certainly wouldn't, I certainly wouldn't call this a precedent or anything like that. I would certainly want to see secondaries. So I appreciate staff bringing it forward, and I appreciate council getting the opportunity to debate it in this case. I think the development that's proposed is a really nice scale. The community support for small lot subdivisions goes back even into our infill housing strategy, which was even before provincial housing directives. And where we've done these small lot subdivisions, they've been really well executed and really well received by the community. So I think in terms of like scope, scale, design, and location near the park, I think is ideal. So certainly, as Councillor Smart mentioned, if there was a different project in front of us, then we would evaluate that differently with respect to suites. But this is what we have to consider, and I think avoiding the need for suites in these particular buildings keeps them at a scope and a scale that people would like to see on a small lot subdivision. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I have Councillor Braithwaite Patterson, and then
I'm just going to say ditto to all my colleagues' comments. Thank
love
you.
the brevity. Please go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
I guess I could say ditto too, but I do concur with what the planning committee, the advisory planning committee's recommendation was. They saw this very much as an application that was in keeping with a lot of what the District of Oak Bay aspired to in the infill housing that we were contemplating. They recognized that the lots were small in comparison to most in Oak Bay, but they did feel, and I agree with that it provides an alternative to large houses, and it still provides good family homes in close proximity to a green space. So kind of a win for all, hopefully, and I hope the project goes successfully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just very briefly, I think the other factor here in my contemplation that it hasn't been spoken to is just the reality this is one of the lowest parts of the community and does have water and egress issues and so forth. And so I think particularly in this particular area, not requiring deep basements with sump pumps and so forth is a reasonable ask. So I'm comfortable, particularly in this particular location, to not require that. All right, I don't think there's a lot of disagreement on this. So I'm going to call question on first and second reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Can I have a reading for second reading? Sorry, first and second for third reading. My apologies. No, just the third reading. And then I think we do the give direction. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Oh, just a clarification, if we wanted to add the staff recommendation of the frontage improvements, would we need to do that before a third reading?
My understanding is we would do it a third reading, and then we would do the recommendation to authorize the covenant for frontage improvements.
Okay, thank you.
So can I have someone read aloud the third reading?
Your Worship, I would move that zoning bylaw 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4951, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. We don't usually debate on third reading. After that second reading, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. And then if you can just read aloud someone and just strike the second of the 2 points.
So, Your Worship, I would move that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to sign and register a covenant under Section 219 of the Land Title Act, registered as a charge against title to all of the land in the proposed CD zone that secures frontage improvements.
Moved and seconded. And before I get to debate or calling the question, I just want to make sure from staff's perspective that's sufficient. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Good luck with the project. We'll be back here for adoption after the Section 219 covenant is resolved. So we will see you one more, maybe we won't see you, but it'll be back here one more time. All right, thank you. We move now to item 4.5, which is zoning bylaw amendment ZON 00063 for 2444 Cranmore Road. Mr. Green, this was in front of us once, and then it went away, and then it's back here again. So over to you for introduction.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district has received a zoning bylaw amendment application for the property located at 2444 Cranmore Road. The amendment is a site-specific zoning amendment to the residential R5 zone to increase the floor area ratio from 0.4 to 0.6 in order to achieve bylaw compliance with the existing building and to permit an increase in the allowable front yard paved surface coverage from 40 to 58% in order to facilitate the development of a new concrete walkway and paved off-street parking area. Council will recall that you reviewed this application on February the 9th of this year and referred the application back to staff to incorporate the changes to the application provided by the applicant at that meeting. Following the February 9th council meeting, staff have reviewed the applicant's revised proposal and have determined that the front yard paving calculation has now been reduced from 58% to approximately 54%. Given the revised design submitted by the applicant on February the 9th, staff are now recommending that this amended design to address the front yard paving be dealt with separately from the zoning bylaw amendment through a development variance permit and the design of the front yard attached as a schedule to that permit to ensure that the submitted design is implemented by the applicant. This application was reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission on January 21st, and the Commission recommended approval of the application with consideration to reducing the proposed extent of the front yard paving. Staff are now recommending that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved and the bylaw adopted, and that council approve the issuance of the development variance permit to reduce the front yard paving. There's been no correspondence received on the development variance permit following staff giving notice of that application. The applicant, I believe, is on vacation and is joining the meeting via Zoom, in case council has any questions of the application.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, yes, procedurally, this is a little bit of an odd one. We can take input on the variance. We cannot take any public input. We're banned by provincial law now to take any input related to the rezoning aspects of it or aspects. So, we're going to follow a process of a DVP, which is basically we'll take questions from council. We'll take any comments from the public related only to the development variance permit, and then we will go back and consider the entirety of the matter at the council table. So with that, are there any questions from members of council for the applicant or to staff? Please go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you very much. I just have one question for staff. I'm looking at the Schedule A to the bylaw, which has the revised plan. Is this actually on the night we last considered this, the applicant came to council chambers with some drawings, which she gave everybody a copy of. Is this really a completely accurate rendering of that with the same dimensions? I guess I'm asking because I was surprised that the drop in permeable surface was so small. I thought that what was going to be achieved was actually more significant than what you've outlined in the report.
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Obviously, we have received the amended design via email, and we've done our best to try and calculate that front yard paving requirement, and so that's why I mentioned that we believe it is approximately 54%, but that's essentially scanning that diagram in and then using Bluebeam to calculate, but we believe it's around 54%, so it hasn't dropped that much, but obviously it is a very narrow lot, which would also take into account that issue. Then that's our understanding. We've sort of erred on the side of caution a little bit with that 54%, given that if once we receive a building permit, we need to check that. I wanted to ensure that it was okay to proceed, if you like.
Thank you then. So just to follow up, maybe the question is more for the applicant, because it sounds like after the meeting, there was a further interaction between staff and the applicant, which may have ended up with something that is different than what we actually saw. I know our discussion in moving this forward. So you think it's exactly the same thing?
This is exactly the amended design that was placed before council on the evening of February the 9th.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? I'm just looking online. I don't see. I think, if I recall, Becky McDougall was the applicant. I don't see that name online at this time. If applicant is with us, perhaps they could raise their hand or turn on their video. I don't think the applicant is actually with us tonight. So if on vacation, it's entirely possible to not have access to Wi-Fi or something. Okay. So that's fine. I mean, I would say that if there's information that we require from the applicant, we should definitely give them the opportunity to be here to answer that. We could always refer this to a future meeting. But if people are comfortable with the proposal in front of us, then we can look to advance it. Other questions for staff? I just have Councillor Appleton? Okay. I had just a question. In the photograph of the building, it looks the car part is parked sort of parallel to the front of the house, and then the drawing that's in front of us. My reading of it, it looks more like the driveway is more sort of coming in off of Cranmore Road and would be more nose into the building. Do we know which of those is included in this design? Is it because there's still a fairly wide, paving that goes across the front of the house, and it's not clear if that's parking area or if it's just a walkway.
Well, I believe the applicant has amended the design to essentially introduce tandem parking onto that driveway rather than parking perpendicular to the laneway. And you'll notice if you, on site, the applicant has actually installed a fence along that property line between the property and the laneway. So that would also encourage the use of a tandem parking solution rather than the ability of two cars being parked side by side to then access onto the laneway before coming out onto the roadway.
Okay, thank you. And then do we have, with the work that you've been able to do we know how wide that driveway is?
We will, but I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay. It does not look like it's significantly wider than a standard
slightly
driveway.
wider than 3 meters, looking at the survey plan in relation to that 3 meter setback from the rear deck to the property line. So it's probably, 3.5 meters.
Okay, so it's in line with a standard driveway, essentially, is what that's being asked for. Okay, thank you, that helps. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. And looking at the diagram, the drawn diagram, so is that fence line, now that's a fence line all the way along there? Because it would actually make more sense to me for them to go in the other way, coming in the parking instead of off Cranmore to come in off the alley. But is that fence all the way along the property line, or is it or is it encroaching onto public land? Because it doesn't look like that alley is very wide, and I know with where my back alley is, and there's a strip of land about, 3 feet wide between my fence and the alley. So I'm wondering if we just can't see that here, or if that fence is actually along the property line. Thank you.
Mr. Green?
Through your worship, I believe that sort of brown line is the property line, and the further line is essentially the edge of the asphalt. And so there is a strip of land between the asphalt and the fence line, which is the municipal laneway.
Thank you. Just for our clarification too, well, there's plans here that show a brown line that may or may not be a fence. That is actually not a requirement. It's not a requirement to be there or not. It has no impact on the application.
Correct, that is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff? I don't see any. So before I go to any motions from council, I grant you that the DVP is at the end of this, but I think if there's any input from the public related to the variance in terms of the paved area in the front lawn, we should hear that before we get to any motions on the property. So with that, excuse me, is there any members of the public, either online or in person, who wants to speak to council about the variance request for the front yard paving, which is asking from a variance of, was it 40% to 54% of the front yard paving? Looking online, seeing no hands. Looking in the room, seeing no hands. Okay, I think we've provided the opportunity for public input then on the variance, so then we can then walk through procedurally here. We'll be looking at the zoning bylaw amendment consideration, and at the end of that, the variance consideration.
Your Worship, I would move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4945, 2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Your Worship, I would further move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4945, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Usually only discussion on second reading, but last chance. Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Finally, Your
Continue.
Worship, I would move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4945, 2026 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Is there, I need someone to second, sorry. Then we're going to move and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Your Worship, I would move that development variance permit DVP 000158 for the property located at 2444 Cranmore Road be approved.
Move, is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. I'll take certainly any discussion on the variance, being a slightly different issue from the development permit. All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. We move now to section 5. We have two items here. We have, both are available for public input. The first is development variance permit DVP 000183 for 2400 Dunlevy Street. Mr. Green, and for the benefit of any of the public who do wish to speak to us on this, the same process will essentially be followed. We'll have an introduction, we'll have questions of council, we'll have opportunity for public input, and then we'll come back to the council table for any additional direction and debate. Mr. Green, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district has received a development variance permit application for the property located at 2400 Dunlevy Street. The purpose of the application is to reduce the rear yard setback requirement from 1.5 metres to 0.6 metres. The requested variance is to facilitate a proposed single-storey accessory dwelling unit proposed at the rear of the property. Staff are recommending that the development variance be approved. No correspondence was received following the district giving notice of the application. The applicant is here to answer any questions that council may have on the application.
Okay, thank you very much. The applicant I see is online here, so, oh, here. Okay. All right. You almost outnumber us between the two of you. All right, so applicant is here. So are there any questions for the applicant or to staff on this? Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, and through you to staff. I was a little bit confused when I first looked at this because it says on the report, it says by locating the ADU within the footprint of the longstanding carport, and then on page 14 it says the ADU is proposed on the footprint of the existing carport. But then when I looked at the last page of the report, there's a red outline which I think is the existing carport, but the ADU actually looks like it's an L shape, so it goes over a lot more than just the existing carport. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure, to staff. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Braithwaite, yes, the building is bigger than the existing carport.
Okay, thank you. And then I wonder, I'm just wondering if any of the neighbors were spoken to about this, because I know that down this particular back alley, there's right across the alley from where this is being proposed, there's a massive ADU that goes very close to the property line, and I don't think that one actually came to council, so I'm not sure why that one didn't and this one is. There must be something there for the variances. But this one is much more, it's only a one-story, and so it seems a little bit more reasonably located on the property for this, but I just wonder if there was any chatting with the neighbors around this proposal. Thank you.
Why don't you come forward and you can answer the question? You do. Just because anybody at home can't hear you if they're if you're not here.
I even know.
So just state your name and municipality of residence. You don't have to give your address.
I'm Judy Mackay, and I live in Oak Bay. And yes, the ADU that was built behind my next door neighbors, I don't think it came to council because I don't think they needed a variance. I think they adhered to the 5-foot setback.
That's great.
And yes, I've spoken to all of my immediate neighbors and a few up and down the street. The notice that went out, some were not clear on what it meant, and so when I explained what we're doing is we want to build on the footprint of the existing carport, and then rather than going up a second story, we're going to do an L shape up the driveway in order to maintain it as a one-story build, just because, you know, we spent about a year trying to figure out what we wanted to do, and we wanted it to have the least negative impact for our neighbors. And if we went up a story, we'd be looking down on them, so eroding privacy, blocking views, limiting sunlight. I did speak to my immediate neighbors, and I have a letter supporting the request from Ken and Lorna Karaney, who are my immediate next-door neighbors.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the design of it. It's and the intergenerational living that I think that it brings to. It's great to have a back alley and to be able to do that. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Yes, I have some questions. Maybe they're for staff, but it's great the applicant's here, so we'll be able to figure this out. I had a question about three things. One, I just wanted to confirm that the existing garage for the home will now become, in effect, defunct or incorporated into the building. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Well, it'll be demolished, essentially, it won't be incorporated. The carport will need to be demolished in order to build a single-storey accessory dwelling unit.
No, I'm actually referring to the underground garage that comes off the laneway. There's an integral garage with the house that...
Ms. Mc... It's okay. You go ahead. I just needed to cut off.
Yes, there's an integral garage in the house, and the way this is situated, I cannot see that you would be able to access it anymore with the proposed layout. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. McKay.
So there is a garage that's inside of the house. We've never used it to bring a car in there. We don't think the ventilation is safe. We are, even though it's not required, we are going to put in a driveway from Dunlevy Street along the south side of the home for the main house. And then there will be a parking area next to the ADU, to that L shape, for me to park.
Thank you. I'm going to get back to that in a second. My next question has to do with I'm looking at basically a site plan layout that's in the package we have. It's Schedule A, it's called. There is an existing other accessory structure on the south side of the premises that's not shown in the drawings, and I just wanted to confirm how that would or would not have been included in the various calculations for coverage and permeable surface.
I'm not sure what drawing you're referring. There is an open air sort of lower patio. It's fenced from the street side and from the neighbor side, but open to the rest of the backyard. So there's no structure there per se.
It looks like it might be a garden shed, but I don't see it on the drawing at all, and it looks like it's existing right now. No?
No.
It's the deck. It's the deck off the back.
Oh.
Right to the property line, though. No, there is something right to the property line on the south side. Yes, a
I
shed, garbage
see your-
enclosure? No?
No, there's nothing there.
Okay.
There's a cement patio. There used to be a gazebo there, but it had to be removed when we put the sun deck on the back of the house.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
don't know if that's the
Okay.
drawing you're looking at.
All right, okay. The next question I had, this one is for staff, in terms of the calculations for coverage, and I guess lot coverage is partly related to achieving our various, groundwater recharge and permeable surface. But the footprint, the house itself has, well, they're proportional, but fairly large roof overhang, so that the gap that we see particularly down the north side, which looks like it would be open space or sort of permeable surface, is actually really overshadowed by that eaves trough. And I just wondered if and how that is ever considered when we actually look at how much permeable surface we get on a property.
Mr. Green?
Through you, through your worship to Councillor Watson, obviously a full zoning bylaw review would have been undertaken of these drawings to ensure compliance with all zoning regulations, including those new regulations that came into effect in July the 14th of 2025. This was the only variance that was noted in that review by staff. And so that is why this is the only variance that is coming to council. So I can only assume that in relation to impermeable surface, lot coverage, live landscape, front and rear yard paving, that those regulations have been met by this application.
Councillor Watson?
Yeah, just one final thing, and this is probably for staff first, but the applicant was kind of alluding to the fact that the front driveway is not required. And I wanted to just explore that a little bit. Is there enough space at the back to provide, where in that little corner of the lot, I guess it would be the northwest corner of the lot, to provide the required 2 parking spaces?
No.
Go ahead,
Well,
staff, I think.
the parking requirement would drop when they're proposing an accessory dwelling unit from 2 stalls to 1 stall under our parking facilities bylaw. Yeah, so only 1 stall is required, correct? Yes. In this case, however, so there's 1 stall at the back, however, the applicant is introducing a driveway to the front to accommodate a second vehicle through that new access driveway that's proposed off Dunlevy Street.
Thank you, and I just want to explore that a little bit. So only 1 space is required. This is it's interesting. We have quite a lot of laneways in Oak Bay, and for many premises, including this laneway, it is actually how people park their cars and get access to store their vehicles. So I'm just curious about whether the front yard driveway needs to be approved, because I know it's been asked for by the property owner, but would we need to, as part of this request, actually concede to the addition of another curb cut and driveway in the front of the premises?
I think it was answered that it's not required, but it's being put in.
Well, through your worship, it's a minimum parking requirement that is required in the parking facilities bylaw rather than a maximum parking requirement.
Anything else, Councillor Watson? I have Councillor Braithwaite for a second time.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor. And sorry, I just wanted to ask, that there's no full basement on this property or on this proposal. It's just a crawl space. Is that correct? Because I see that there's stairs going down, or there's some fencing going down into underneath the building.
Yeah, that's correct. The current driveway that goes into the inner house garage is on a slope. And so when we come up with that arm of the house, we're going to utilize some of the space of the driveway to put a crawl space.
Thank you very much for that. Ms. McCann, I'm going to ask you just to turn off your microphone when you're not speaking. There we go. Anything else for anybody at the questions? All right, this is just a simple development variance permit application, so perhaps I can get a motion. My apologies before I get to motions. Is there anybody either in the room, which there is nobody else in the room, or online that wishes to speak to the application?
Yes.
Well, you're the applicant. I think we've had a submission from the applicant. Go ahead, if you wish, Ms. Eichenberger.
In response to the parking, we have already applied for the driveway permit and paid. We are waiting to hear for the scheduling, but that 2-car parking is going to be installed and has been applied for and paid for.
Great. Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay.
I'll move that the development variance permit DVP 000183 for the property located at 2400 Dunlevy Street be approved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion on this? Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Just very briefly, Your Worship, very much in support of what's going on here, and I'm pleased to see us taking this approach because I think this is a situation that's going to crop up many times with the installation of the ADUs, where you've got an existing building that is not conforming to current standards, but also has been of long standing and isn't bothering anybody, is encroaching on the alley. I know in my alley, there's all kinds of sort of interesting structures that I can tell really quickly weren't built to standard because they've been there for 70 or 80 years. And I think that us adopting this approach with ADUs to vary that rear yard setback, again, produces no impact on the alley, but provides a real and substantive way of producing more yard space, more green space within the lot. So I think that this is a constructive thing we can do to kind of minimize the footprint of ADUs. So I think it's going to come up again.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the variance in front of us? Not seeing any, I'll just add, thank you for the application. I think it's nice to think it's a proportionate and an appropriate thing. And as Councillor Appleton noted, I think this is a reasonable request to allow it to fit and to overlap the current footprint. Seeing no other comments, Councillor, go ahead, Councillor Watson.
I would like to comment. I will vote to support this. I think it is, as Councillor Appleton said, it's the right scale, and it deals with these laneway situations where we have access and we have, an opportunity. I think I am disappointed that we're seeing 2 parking spaces out of the front of this home. I think we have on that stretch of Dunlevy a really nice extended boulevard, and I would prefer to see one, if there's a driveway, I get it, 1 parking space and a tree. And that opportunity is eliminated when we now put this on the front. I do appreciate that somebody in the main house needs to have more proximate access, probably for a car than coming around from the back. But I think there is I think it's unfortunate that we are now going to have a double two-car parking on the front of the boulevard here in Dunlevy, which kind of detracts from a pattern that's established along there of actually, for many properties, having a really nice boulevard strip. So I will, on the housing side of it, the addition of the housing, I'll vote for it, but I think that is a drawback.
Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I will echo Councillor Watson's comments. I appreciate certainly the desire and what the housing that this provides and the sensitivity to the neighbors and keeping it a single story and not a double. But I too am growing more concerned about the use of front yards now, or what we know to be front yards, being used for parking, particularly on this street. This street is really under pressure because of the wonderful proximity of Estevan Village being so nice. And so this, not only does it take 2 parking spots and put them in a front yard, which has typically been a very green down that street, it also it all keeps diminishing the parking on the street close to a village. And so I know that we have not, unfortunately, as a council, had a lot of time to talk about what our laneway housing should look like, and the forms that it has to take, and emergency services and all of these types of things. And it's obvious by this application that there is a strong desire to maximize housing in the district, which is also needed. So it's tough considerations, but I think that this is something that we will have to explore more as a council as time goes on, and we start to see more of these changes occurring in the neighborhood, because there is one house on the street that has 7 parking stalls. So we're starting to some in the back, some in the front, and so creative use of space is not necessarily planned use of space, and they don't always harmonize. So that's my comments. But I do support the application.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'm not seeing any. I'll just speak for myself on the parking since it came up. I'm actually appreciative of it. I think that think it probably appropriately separates the use, and if it meets the needs of the applicant, all for it, and if we didn't need it, that would be fine too, but I think it's, I think keeping the cars off the street is beneficial, particularly near commercial areas, so I think it's actually quite supportable. Since we all seem to be in agreement that the application itself has merit, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed? That carries. Good luck with the project. It's the end of a long road, I know, so good luck with it. Have a good evening. We move then to the last item on the agenda, which is 5.2, and thank you again, Mr. Eichenberger online as well. Have a good evening. Moving then to item 5.2, the last item on the agenda. This too is available for public input, so if anybody wishes to address council on this, we have no one left in the room, so if there's anybody online, I might suggest that you raise your hand at this time, and we'll get to you when we get to the public input portion. We have a recommendation here. I'm going to give this over to Mr. Green or Mr. Bowl. Mr. Bowl, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple of comments on my part, and then Mr. Green will walk you through some of the details. Council interest in the topic of delegated approval dates back to 2023, when the district adopted a new development applications procedures bylaw. In 2024 and 2025, criteria for delegated approval of minor variances were developed, and specific criteria were added to the bylaw October. In the spring of 2025, we also presented to Council the results of an assessment as part of Council Priority Project Optimization of Development Processes, and delegated approval of permits with minor scope was identified as an important opportunity to right-size the development review process in that context as well. And right-sizing is about focusing efforts on changes that can make a difference, while matters that have less impact could be allowed to follow a shorter process without council approval. So today we are reporting back on other options for projects as directed by council for projects with lesser impacts, and Mr. Green will provide some further context.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report presents an amendment bylaw to Council's development application procedures bylaw for delegating infill housing development permits to staff as requested by Council on January the 12th, and for establishing processes for temporary use permits, which are now allowed in all areas of the district, with the adoption of the updated OCP in December of last year. In addition, and in response to Council's previous direction to staff to delegate other permit approvals to staff, the report also outlines further options for Council's consideration for certain development permits and heritage alteration permits, and these additional options are laid out in Attachment 2 and Attachment 3 of the report. The staff recommendation seeks direction to revise the amendment bylaw that is presented in the report to also include the delegated options in Attachment 2 and Attachment 3 prior to the consideration of readings of that bylaw. Happy to answer any questions that Council has on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Questions for staff? Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks so much, Mayor. I do have a few questions, so bear with me, please. I think my first question that I would like to ask is that I noticed in the staff report, it does say that advisory bodies will get to see the applications. So it says that applications will still be routinely forwarded to the appropriate advisory bodies for review and comment, as per the development application procedures bylaw, and then comments received from the advisory bodies would be forwarded to the director for consideration as part of the approvals process. So I'm wondering if you can tell me, would that not then mean that you still have to write a report for this for these applications to go forward to these advisory bodies, and what net benefits would we have to write a report for the advisory bodies and yet not have it come to council with that same report?
Mr. Green?
Well, there would be, through your worship to Councillor Braithwaite, we currently produce 2 reports. So currently we do produce a report for APC, and then we produce a new report for council. So there will be some time saving in relation to only having to take a report to the APC or to the ADP, rather than then having to create a new report that includes the Commission's recommendations to council.
Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. I guess it just confuses me that it's going to still go to those advisory bodies for their input, and yet it doesn't come to our table for our input. So that's, I'm a little bit confused on that, but I'll go through my other questions. So do we know how many infill housing development permit applications we have actually processed under the new OCP so far, and what we've learned from them? Like, are there learnings that we've had from them that would help us determine whether or not these delegations are moving us in the right direction?
Mr. Green?
Through your worship to Councillor Braithwaite, we have not as yet received a infill development permit area for 3 or 4 units on a lot since the adoption of the OCP on December the 11th of last year.
Thank you. And if council delegates these approvals, what mechanisms will be in place to ensure that council still has visibility into the types of applications being approved so we can still understand development trends and any emerging issues that might be coming up?
Mr. Green?
I guess there's probably, through your worship to Councillor Braithwaite, there's probably 2 answers to that question. One is what we've been doing with delegated development variance permits most recently is we still draft essentially a staff memo and the draft permit that the staff member writes to the Director of Community Building and Planning. And then following, say that if that development variance minor delegated DVP is approved, we've been placing those staff memos and those draft permits on the development tracker so that people can see how staff have determined that minor DVP. And so we would think that we would still have a similar process to that effect where we would place that staff memo onto the development tracker for transparency of how staff reached the decision to in the determination of that development permit. I did have a second part to that question. Obviously, we've also committed to annual reporting to come back on an annual basis to inform council as to, a bit like we did with the infill review on January the 19th, where we presented all the infill projects to council. The intent is that we would do the same for all types of applications received on an annual basis to show council what types of applications have been receiving and where there's been some issues or where we think there needs to be some tweaks made to either to the guidelines or to processes. And so that would also give council essentially an annual reporting feedback process.
Thank you so much. The report mentions neighboring municipalities delegate infill permits. Do those municipalities delegate the same range of development permits and heritage alteration permits that are being proposed in our in your staff report?
Mr. Green?
Through your worship to Councillor Braithwaite, I don't know the specifics of what types of heritage alteration permits the City of Victoria delegates to staff, but I suspect my understanding, and I might be incorrect on this, that most heritage alteration permits are delegated to staff, just like now that they've delegated all development permits to staff.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So if we chose to proceed in phases, let's say, for example, delegating the infill permits now and revisiting the others after we have more experience, would that create any operational difficulties for staff?
Mr. Green?
Through your worship to Councillor Braithwaite, no, I think, council, this is council's, essentially council's bylaw to its development application procedure bylaw, and the council can amend or alter that bylaw at any time in the future.
I'll just ask one more question before I pass it on to someone else. I think I know the answer to this, but how much experience do we actually have so far with the development permit applications under the new OCP? I think I've asked that a little bit already, and the small-scale multi-unit housing rules. And do staff feel that you have enough experience yet to confidently move to broader delegation?
Mr. Green? Mr. Bull? I think the first part was answered, but...
Thank you through the mayor. Let me see. I would say we have experience reviewing development permits, although we don't see a lot of form character permits here in Oak Bay. So I think for the Oak Bay context, we don't have that much staff experience with that just yet. We do have the guidelines in the OCP. That's what we would rely on. But yeah, this is definitely to require development permits for infill housing is new for Oak Bay. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you to staff. I'm really seeking clarification on what is before us, and I guess if I look at the report on page 5, it says development, permit applications for development within the environmental DPAs are also recommended for delegation as they require the assessment and submission of a report from a qualified professional. So if I read that report, it seems quite broad, and yet if I look at the attachments that have been provided in some of these area, some of what we would be delegating is more minor. So I guess what I am seeking is clarification on how broad the intent is for environmental DPAs if they have a professional assessment. Is it really restricted to some of the more minor things that I see in these? Or would it be, for example, like the application that was before us, which was, we just did not agree to accept professional opinion as our means for just delegating approval of the application?
Sure. Over to staff. I think that's a good question, just in terms of the clarification of the nature of it. The existing is obviously just minor and exempt or some of the fence construction and so forth. So perhaps some clarification about what would be delegated and what would not. Mr. Green?
Through your worship to Councillor Patterson, I guess the recommendation from staff is on the next page in relation to page 6, where we're saying that staff are recommending that the bylaw be amended in terms of all DPs within the environmental DPA. That would include the watercourses DPA, the shorelines DPA, or the hazard conditions DPA. And then, essentially, yes, there's essentially 4 types of 4 recommendations there in relation to what types of development permits could be delegated to staff if council so choose.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Does that answer the question, Councillor Patterson? Are there other questions for staff? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to staff, I guess I have the same question because it hasn't been answered for me yet. So I do feel like when I read the report, it's a little bit more broad sweeping as to how much delegation is happening, particularly when you do reference the bottom of page 6. But then I was kind of comforted, assuming that the attachments 2 and 3 are all that we're approving, which is more minor than is actually written in the report from what I read. So could staff just clarify that if we move forward option 1, for example, we are only approving what is actually listed in the chart of attachment 2 and 3 and not the more broader statements such as all DPs within an environmental area? Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Bull.
Yeah, thanks. There's a lot of information in the table, and on the first page, which is 17 of 20, you see that recommended delegation there for some of the permits are partial, if you will. The first line is for infill. The recommendation there is to delegate all. But numbers 2 and 3 for the multi-unit residential and the commercial, there's a list of specific delegated grounds there in the table on the right-hand side. But if you continue that table on page 18 of 20, even though there's a lot of wording in the table there for the watercourses and shorelines DPA, the middle one with lots of wording, those are existing exemptions in the OCP that are already there. And the proposed delegation is all, and not kind of zooming it in on certain smaller projects. But that could be a change if council feels that is too sweeping of a change, then that could be further detailed, of course. But that's what the tables try to convey. Thank you.
And just for our clarification, the exempt column there is exempt from delegation. Is that correct? Or is it exempt from?
It's exempt from the development permit requirements. So those are now
Okay.
existing exemptions already in the official community plan.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Please go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor to staff, that just to follow up again, that does add a lot of clarification for me, but I guess I'm still not clear, and perhaps it's referenced in the report. But so, for instance, then with shorelines DPA, when it says minor amendments, Where's the definition of what a minor amendment would be for a shoreline DPA?
Sure. Mr. Bowler or Mr. Green, those are the existing delegation with delegated authority, so go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, I believe those are in the Development Applications Procedure Bylaw already. That's where that is already defined. We can pull that bylaw up and give you a bit more detail. Thank you.
Just to, yeah, that is correct. However, we don't necessarily, in relation to a DP, we don't specifically define what minor is in relation to DP, but the council has delegated that minor DP, and we therefore use that determination of whether we think that is a minor revision or not, and we would then use our discretion to say, yes, that is minor, or no, that is not minor, that needs to go to council.
Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through your Mayor to staff, then I'll just ask, and I apologize for the repeat, but so with regards to the project we saw tonight in the shoreline development permit area, would staff consider that something that would be minor and would have been part of this delegated process? Thank you.
To staff?
So, yes, so the recommendation is that that DPA for that shoreline development permit that council saw this evening would be delegated to staff, is the recommendation in this report.
The only other question I have attached to this is just in the existing delegation, there's minor, and there were 2 existing or issued development permits. So are those, is it only to already existing development permits, the minor amendments, or is it to new as well? Under the existing, I appreciate that under the recommendation it's for new, but the language that's here for water courses, et cetera, it says minor amendments to issued DPs. So just for clarification, is the current delegation to only to issued development permits? Or is it to, in the process of approving the development permits?
That will be to already issued development permits that council has issued, and therefore you've already delegated minor deviations to those DPs to staff.
Right. So in that scenario, if that had been an approved application tonight and the applicant came back and said, actually, we need to shift this slightly by a foot to accommodate something, that would be a minor change, and that would be essentially delegated to staff under the current rules. Is that a fair interpretation?
It is, yeah, it might be that they, I don't know, change the windows on the design or something, and we think, okay, that we believe that is a minor revision that doesn't fundamentally change what council has approved in relation to that proposal, and therefore doesn't need to go back to council, that's been delegated to staff to determine.
Okay. And that is, sorry, and through my clarification, and Mr. Bull, that's the existing allowance under the delegation. Okay. Mr. Bull?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to add that in the case of formal character permits, we have some standard language in our bylaw, and that has a provision that talks about minor being, it's minor if it doesn't substantially change the formal character. It's still somewhat subjective, but it gives a little bit of guidance, so we would take a very cautious approach there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Since I started asking questions, I'll just ask my only other questions here. It's just really, I guess, the ability to assess the heritage alteration permits. We don't have specific heritage planners like some jurisdictions do. There's often a lot of interpretation of, particularly for things like accessory dwelling units or changes to a building, that are some best practices in terms of materials selection, the interpretation of the heritage standards of things being respectfully similar but not mimicking of existing things. There's these sort of pieces there. I'm just curious about what are if delegated, where does the staff sort of see that expertise coming? Is it coming from the Heritage Commission, where that advice would be taken, or would it be internal interpretation? The Heritage Prospect area obviously has some guidelines, but just for other heritage designated properties, where staff would use as guidelines to adjudicate minor, I guess in this case, not even just minor, but changes to the exterior and accessory dwelling units. Please go ahead.
Well, yes, through your worship, well, first of all, yeah, we would be still taking those heritage alteration permits to the Heritage Commission. If they are located in the heritage conservation area, then we would use the prospect guidelines. If they are not located in the prospect, then obviously our starting point is to look at what the designation bylaw says in terms of how it is, what is its statement of significance in relation to that bylaw, if it is attached to that bylaw or not. And then obviously council will recall that it adopted as part of the 2025 update to the OCP, we did incorporate the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada. And so we now have that tool to allow us to also use those guidelines in the evaluation of heritage alteration permits that are not located in the prospect.
Mr. Bull?
And if I could add, for these applications, we also expect the applicant to submit a proposal that is underpinned by a professional's opinion about those guidelines. And I also would like to know that on this type of permit, we recommend only delegation on the minor ones, not the bigger ones. The minor ones are limited, as shown in attachment 3, to there's no change to the footprint, there's just landscaping changes or accessory buildings. So that's the context on that one. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Other questions? Councillor Watson?
Yeah, just immediately following up on that, I didn't quite understand with the policy recommendation for exempting certain projects under the HPAs, the heritage alteration permits. You say identify exemptions based on statement of significance when creating new designation bylaws. I don't really understand what that means. Like somebody comes forward with their proposal with a statement of significance for the property. How does that then trigger an exemption or not? So if you could just clarify there for me, please.
Okay, please go ahead.
I guess in the past we have adopted heritage designation bylaws that just simply say that the property is designated by bylaw, but doesn't actually set out within that bylaw what is special or unique about that property. And so what we're saying is that if when we go forward with new bylaws, that we will incorporate into that bylaw what can be done or cannot be done on the property. For example, we know that some heritage designation bylaws in the past have said that painting of the exterior doesn't trigger a heritage alteration permit, and so it'll be being very clear within that bylaw what is allowed and what would still require a heritage alteration permit, because sometimes I think there was an application last year for 1052 Newport for Glenlyon Norfolk School to repaint that building. In the prospect that is exempt from requiring a heritage alteration permit, but under that bylaw there was no exemption in that bylaw, so we made them go through a heritage alteration permit to repaint the building, even though they had a report produced by a heritage consultant.
Thank you. That's completely clear to me now. I just didn't understand what you were inferring there. So statement of significance could say certain elements really should have permits if they're going to be altered, but it may be silent in other things, in which case they'd be exempt. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
Thank you. I just, and thank you for all the questions from my colleagues through you to planning. I know Heritage has been concerned for some time about the need for more statements of significance, that there is a dearth of those statements for heritage properties in Oak Bay. Can you comment on do we have a strategy to increase statements of significance on properties that are valued by the community that have heritage significance? Is there any strategy to address that issue? Because I know the Heritage Commission in the past has expressed their concern about those properties that do not have a statement of significance to support that bylaw approach. Thank you.
That's almost off topic, but not entirely. So yeah. Thank you, Mr. Go ahead, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, definitely something that the Heritage Commission is mulling over as one of their initiatives too under their work plan. In the context of these permits, the permits apply only where there's a register, whether it's in the Prospect Heritage Conservation Area or whether the property is designated. And in those cases, there is usually documentation from the past. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's incomplete if it's older. But that should be a basis already for those situations. But yeah, for future additions to either the designations, definitely the expectation is that a new registration or designation has that statement of significance. We've seen one last year where that was provided. I think the Commission and some other volunteers helped with that. So definitely on our radar as well to see how that could be increased in the future. But how that exactly will happen will probably also depend on what the Commission can do in their work plan for this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Green. I'm going to follow up just on your question because I'm curious if staff know, are there a significant number of our heritage, obviously this is relying on those statements of significance, so do we have any sense of how many of the designated heritage buildings do not have a statement of significance attached? Mr. Green?
I don't know the answer to that question. We have been trying to update the register of both heritage registered properties and heritage designated properties to make sure that our list is complete. That has taken some time, but we haven't then done further work to analyse how many of those properties are missing a statement of significance. But if somebody comes forward to either place their property on the heritage register or to seek designation of that property, we do require that property owner to submit a statement of significance as part of the application. So that it can then be reviewed by the Heritage Commission as part of that application process.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't expect many on the register would have those, but certainly I would expect most of the designated, but if they're not all, then it has an impact on whether or not this is the appropriate tool or not. If almost all do, then that makes sense. If half of them for something doesn't, then it maybe isn't the best tool. So thank you. Thank you, Councillor Green, for raising that. Any other questions? Okay. So there isn't the bylaw itself, but it's just asking direct staff, so including Uplands options for these things. I did ask the public if they'd wish to raise their hand, if they wish to speak. I'll do it one more time before I get to motions on the floor. I don't see people online raising their hand, and there's nobody in the room left, so, but I'll give it a moment here. Procedurally here, the recommendation is just a verbal, essentially, direction to include aspects in attachment 2 and 3. So if council feels comfortable with some but not all, what I might do is we can just sort of walk through them and just deal with them in the numeric order. So attachment 2 and then attachment 3. We can just go through 1 through 5 of the 1 through 6 of the attachment 2, and then 1 and 2 of the attachment 3, which deals with heritage. I think in that way we can have a quick debate or discussion on each one and get to it. I don't see other anybody online indicating they wish to speak, so we'll come back to this table. In fact, maybe what I can do this is really, rather than do it through motions, just go around the table for the level of comfort on some of these. So infill residential DPA was probably the initial kicker of this one, which is to allow for staff to take all the work done in the OCP and just use those design tools to apply. Is there anybody who still has some concerns about that delegation within this approach? Councillor Green, and then Councillor Braithwaite, I'll let you speak.
Thank you. First of all, let me say that my comments will be at quite a high level. It's not going to be specific necessarily to individual delegation issues, but I have a concern not because it's our planning department. I have a concern because this is a responsibility as elected representatives of the community that we have, which is aspects of land use. And the accountability begins and ends at this table. And my concern is this an existential issue for local governments generally in delegated authority to staff? And I say that because where does the community voice play a role in this? They have a recourse through elections and through coming to council and speaking to their elected representatives. But if we delegate some key land use decision-making to staff, then what is the recourse for the community itself? And I think this is an important governance question that we need to ask ourselves. So I don't want to speak specifically to these recommendations. We can go through them, and I agree that's a good plan. But it's a bigger question for me, and I think I was asked that by a number of community members. What will this mean long-term for land use in Oak Bay, and what will be the role of elected representatives? Who will they ultimately speak for, and how will they achieve some level of accountability at the elected sort of level? So I hope I'm being clear. I'm trying to articulate what was shared with me, but I too am concerned. I know we're trying to streamline housing, and I know we're trying to streamline land use, but are we fully aware of what we might be sacrificing in terms of governance and our role as elected officials? So that's just my general larger question. I don't have an answer myself, but I wanted to raise it tonight in this context. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Braithwaite?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I have in the past voted against the delegation to staff, and I think I do have some comments that I think, because I'm not going to speak to each one of these ones individually, because I'm going to speak to them all as a whole. And I, as you've said, Councillor Green, I really appreciate the work that staff's done on this report, and I do support the goal of improving efficiency in our development processes and reducing unnecessary delays for our residents and making good use of council time are really important objectives. But I do believe that these proposed delegation options really reduce our democratic oversight. So to me, council loses visibility into neighborhood change patterns, design trends, and cumulative impacts. And also, our new OCP has just recently been adopted. The new infill DP rules just introduced, and the small-scale multi-housing recently implemented. So, in essence, we have no what I would call real-world experience yet. So to me, delegating now would mean that council would not see many of the early projects. I think that delegation scope suggested in this report is larger than necessary as it expands into the environmental DVP, the heritage permits, landscaping changes, and the exterior changes. And it's, to me, that's really a significant expansion beyond the original direction that we gave. This gives broad discretion to staff that may be considered flexible, but to me it also shifts the real authority. I believe that having a council learning period matters. So that might be the first 1 to 2 years is where we learn what's working with our new OCP and what isn't, and where guidelines fail. And I believe that if we delegate, that reduces that learning. So again, I feel that my concern is that if we delegate too broadly at this stage, we may lose valuable insight into how development applications are unfolding under the new framework. And seeing these applications firsthand really helps me understand whether our policies and guidelines are working as we intended. So I'd support revisiting the additional delegation in a year or two once we have a clearer picture of how the system is functioning. So I'm supportive of delegation in principle. I just think that a phased approach makes more sense while we gain experience within the new framework that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we're talking to all of them, I'm happy to take people's comments on where they feel that they're supportive or perhaps would prefer a more delayed approach to some of this. I'm happy to go around the table and listen to that. Go ahead, Councillor Smart, then Patterson, over here.
Yeah, thank you. I am very much in support of the majority of what's in front of us. I think we already have delegated to staff options called building permit, for instance, and I think it's very important that we continually ask ourselves whether we're making things better for our residents or making things unaffordable or making things take so long that our community members can't build the housing they need because time is cost. So I'm in favor of much of what is in front of us here. I do feel like it is very thoughtfully written. Where I get uncomfortable is with regards to items 4, 5, and 6 that relate to environmental concerns, where I feel that still at this time needs some council oversight. But I am in favor of attachment 2, items 1 to 3, and attachment 3, items 1 to 2, because I feel like I've seen the applications come to council in the last 3 years that fall in the categories that haven't been delegated, and I've heard both at our committee level and at this council table that it has been cost that was unnecessary to spend, staff time that was unnecessary to spend, and we all know how valuable those things are.
Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I feel that a lot of what is put on these attachment sheets and recommended for delegation, the minor things are in fact the way that we should be moving towards. Particularly, I think what will fall to council to work with staff more in the future is the ramifications of some of the infill that is being done now, and that we're seeing the consequences of, as we saw in one application tonight, the change in the parking. But it's not just an addition of 2 parking, because it's really full. It's really 4, 1 at the back, 2 at the front, plus the loss of 1 on the street, and that affects the villages. I see fairly large secondary power poles going in with additional lines to new dwelling units. So there are still so many aspects of the ramifications of the infill we're doing that we haven't started to explore yet, and yet as the community grows and as it densifies, these are important questions. Where do sidewalks go on streets that don't have, there's still a lot of work that I think that needs to be done as the community evolves over time. But on what is before us, certainly I don't have a problem with attachment 2, 1, 2, and 3. I am not supportive of 4, 5, and 6, and then I am supportive of attachment 3, 1, and 2. So that concludes my remarks.
Thank you for that clarification. Comments over here, Councillor Watson and Appleton?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like, likewise with Councillor Green and Councillor Patterson, I would support 1, 2, and 3 and attachment 2, which were the exemptions for DPs, and 1 and 2 on the heritage front. I just wanted to note that in terms of 1, the infill residential DPA, it's only a few weeks since we received that really comprehensive and wonderful report. I think it was Julie Planner Cook who presented that to us, that actually looked at everything that had happened in our community for the last 18 months before we had infill residential DPAs, and it was only 2 applications of those 26 or 27 that caused any kind of community concern or pushback, and that has now been addressed in this idea of having infill DPA guidelines for form and character, siting and design. So I think that I am quite comfortable in allowing this evolution, although I do appreciate Councillor Patterson's view that there will need to be some broader policy review that starts to capture these issues that become small irritants or maybe not, or larger concerns once we start to see patterns. I don't think it's like tonight, for example, it would have been very difficult to pull out parking and say, no, you can't do that when you're doing it for other people. But if you start to see that that is creating changes to our boulevards that we really want to get a handle on in a different way, then we do need to be able to see patterns over a broader scope of time. But I don't think that the way to do that is to stop and micromanage individual applications, at least for infill DPAs, multi-unit residential and commercial as laid out in attachment 2. So I'm comfortable with the approach for those things as noted, and then I guess we'll maybe be having a discussion about 4, 5, and 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'm aligning fairly well with my colleagues here. I, too, am in favor of items 1, 2, and 3 on attachment 2, and items 1 and 2 on attachment 3. I'm not in favor of the delegation of items 4, 5, and 6 on attachment 2, the environmental DPs. Just some of my rationale for that is with respect to the infill residential DPA, I think there's been a lot of really great comments here. Just following on Councillor Watson's comment, in addition to that discussion we just had not so long ago, we also did request a report back on implementation, that council did direct a report back on implement. That will not necessarily capture everything that we might learn in the interim, but council, has already directed that we have a touch point to evaluate in the future how that infill DP infill process is working. So I'm comfortable with that at this stage of the game. With respects to items 2 and 3, I think this is a slam dunk, because I can think of quite a few DPs that have come before council in these categories that were very minor in scope and required a whole staff report and that sort of thing. And I think we might have dealt with them around the council table for a grand total of a couple of minutes. So that's a clear savings for me. My rationale with respect to the environmental DPAs was in evidence tonight, I think, just in terms of there is strong, obviously, staff have to rely, and it's totally understandable that staff will rely on consultants and external experts to provide information for guiding these elements. There's a couple of things that I would say about these 3 categories. Number one, they're not extremely numerous. I don't think we see a huge number of these, so that the savings is not, in terms of staff time, is not as much as it would be on some other categories. I can seldom think of one of the DP applications that's come in one of those categories that was simple. There were other components that were involved and other factors that weighed into the evaluation of that DP beyond the information provided by the environmental professional. I can remember them all being fairly complex and fairly multifaceted. So I do think that that's someplace that council wants to weigh in. Again, tonight was a pretty good example of that. And I'm in favor of the components on attachment 3 because, as is mentioned, the delegated components do not include all delegated components. They include, relatively routine or fun, sort of basic components. I've become acutely aware, both, as liaison to both Heritage Commission and Foundation over time, that none of these things are simple. We've dealt with some very large-scale heritage-related matters before council over the last couple of years, and so they require council oversight in a lot of cases. They're complex, but what is delegated here is not that. It is those things which are relatively simple in terms of alterations. So I appreciate the approach that's been laid out here with respect to HAPs and heritage preservation. That's my viewpoint, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I think hearing what's been said around the table, I'd be supportive of the consensus that seems to be largely, maybe not quite a consensus, but it seems to be driving. I tend to agree that the 1 through 3 on attachment 2 are reasonable, as are 1 and 2 on the attachment 3. And I think the interesting part of those is that they all have sort of conditions attached to what constitutes a minor amendment and the rationale for that. They're not thoroughly defined. I think staff have pointed out it's not necessarily a 100% science. What's considered to be minor is sort of a little bit up to the discretion. But I do think having, as they've noted, some sort of report back of what it is that has been done and has been undertaken on our behalf, I think I can be satisfied with that. So I think those directions, to my mind, are pretty reasonable. I'm hearing that there's a majority of people who sort of fall in that. I might suggest that the motion be just amended a little bit to include the recommended options, specifically to options or items 1 to 3 in attachment 2 and item 1 and 2 in attachment 3 in the report. But I'll leave that to someone at the council to make that recommendation, just reflecting what I've heard. Please go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I would make the motion that council direct staff to revise the draft development application procedures bylaw number 4844, 2023, amendment bylaw number 4950, 2026, to include the recommended options for delegated approvals as outlined in attachments 2, items 1 through 3, but excluding 4, 5, and 6, and attachment 3 of the report dated March the 2nd, 2026.
Is that moved and seconded? Thank you. Is there further discussion on these two pieces? Please go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. I'll be voting against it as per my last comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll just finish up comments. I really appreciate all the feedback from everybody around the table. I think I do want to just acknowledge, I think, probably a minority viewpoint from Councillor Braithwaite, based on what I've heard, but I think the issues raised about the importance of having the visibility at this table to understand the impact of these changes is an absolutely valid one. And I think there are two ways of doing this. One is just, as Councillor Braithwaite suggested, was following a pathway of let's do it ourselves and make sure that we can kind of maybe define minor a bit better, or this path, which is a little bit more undertaking a partial approach and getting a report back on the impact. So I just wanted to just reflect back that I did appreciate that those comments. I think both valid approaches, but I am supportive of the motion that's on the floor. I think it achieves the goal that I would like to seek. Councillor Green.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments everyone has made and appreciate the efforts of staff. Thank you very much. But I will not support this motion as it stands. And hopefully there will be motions coming forward in the future that will be more acceptable to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor and those opposed? I have Councillor Green and Councillor Braithwaite opposed. That does carry. So those bylaw changes will be coming back sometime in the reasonably near future. I believe that concludes our meeting for the night. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Moved second. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Good work,
All right,
everybody.
have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much for your input, and thank you, staff, for putting together these items for tonight, just to help us get ahead of the schedule a little bit on some of the land use applications.